Welcome to the podcast. My name is Father Bill W. I'm an Episcopal priest. I live here in Austin, Texas, and have had the gift of recovery since December the 27th of 1972. The theory behind these podcasts is to try to help people who are in 12-step recovery go a little bit deeper into the history, the psychology, and the spirituality of the 12-step program. So I think it's a lot deeper than many of us are told when we come into meetings. My hope is that some of this material will help you put new life in your program if you've been around for a while, or if you're new coming in, you'll get to appreciate some of the richness that is there on the 12-step journey. So that's where I'm kind of coming from. I'm going to kind of be really frank with you guys today. I'm kind of pressed for time. I've got a funeral coming up, working on the book, and I've got some deadlines on that. A newsletter to get out all in the next few days. But there is something that I wanted to share with you, and it's not my usual thing, so we're going to go out on a little bit of a limb today. It's a book that has been very, very helpful to me. Sometimes I'm asked, in two-way prayer, it's helpful to bring a reading into your quiet time. Pioneers were big readers. Dr. Bob left a whole library of spiritual books behind. So part of that morning quiet time is devoted to reading scripture or an author who really speaks to you. Well, I wanted to share one with you in this series. The author is a man by the name of Thomas R. Kelly. He was a Quaker. He was not an alcoholic, a philosopher, taught in colleges, a gifted writer, but most of all, I would say, a mystic. And I am convinced that many alcoholics and addicts are misplaced mystics. We long for that connection that some mystical writers have found and are able to describe to us. Bill Wilson, I think he had a mystical experience there in Detox, an encounter with the divine, that the veil was lifted and he was able to see behind it in some ways. And that brought him great peace. So I'm very interested in writers who can help us to find that place within. Big Book says the great reality is within, and that's the inner journey and learning to access an inner life. Well, I found some writers who have been helpful to me. You may find ones who are helpful to you, and I don't know that we're all going to travel along the same path. But Kelly is one of those guys who really speaks to me. I've been wanting to do this for a while, but just didn't have the courage. So I just said, "What the hell? Let's just gamble on this thing and see if it flies or not." So I'm not as prepared as I try to be, but maybe that's a good thing. So the book that we're going to be going through in this series is titled A Testament of Devotion. Again, the author, Thomas R. Kelly. I will put a link to it in the show notes. I'm going to begin with the introduction. It's kind of short, and I think I'm going to read the whole thing because it sets the tone for what lays ahead. See if it is something that speaks to you, if it's something that you're interested in. Gosh, anyone who can kind of describe that inner place of peace, of light, of joy. You can come at this thing in all sorts of different ways. Jung came at it in a way that really interested me. He said that we have two centers within ourselves: the ego center, which is our normal frame of consciousness, level of consciousness. But there's another center, a psychic center. He describes this center in that manner. For me, I think the voice that we hear in two-way prayer is hopefully coming from that place within. And I'm going to read one of the writings that kind of gave me the courage to to do this thing. I usually throw my two-way prayer writings away, but a fellow maybe about 10 or 12, 15 years ago gave me a very nice leather-bound journal to write in, and I never did throw it away. And the reason I throw it away is I just have this had this vision of I'm dead, and my kids find all of my journals, and some Thanksgiving they're going to go through them and read all of some of the stuff that I write there about them oftentimes, and won't they have a laugh? So I burn them, but you guys do what you want. Here's the writing that I came across, again, 12, 15 years ago. I don't date them. Here was my question. Lord, I've been in a sorry state. My will is not to be willing. I'm fighting you and life and love and truth. I thank you for bringing me to this place. I feel desperate and utterly dependent on you for help. Please help me. Help me start anew. This is what I heard back. And it struck me because he's going to mention Kelly in the response. My son, my brother, my life in you. Savor Kelly. He speaks to your soul, and I speak through him. This is why you recognized his voice immediately. Read Holy Obedience 3 times. It's one of his essays that we'll get to. Each time, sink deeper into the way, capital W. I am the way and the truth lived out in your life. You can always start over. And then some specific guidance to do for that day. So we're calling this series "Meeting the Great Reality Within," and this episode is finding a guide to take you there. And for me, Thomas R. Kelly, Quaker, philosopher, mystic, is one of those guys. The introduction to the book is written by Richard J. Foster, also a Quaker, a prolific writer, teacher. Let me just cut to the chase and get to what he writes. He says, I still remember my first encounter with a testament of devotion many years ago. It was a cold, rainy February morning, and I had just slumped into a chair at the Dulles International Airport to wait for my flight. Exhausted from a hectic schedule of muchness and manyness, 2 words that are going to appear in Kelly's writings. Muchness and manyness. And that's the ego state. We get so caught up in the stuff of life that we miss the meaning of life. So he says, I was glad for the solitude of airport and airplane as I made the trek from DC to LA. I pulled out the slender volume I had brought along for reading during free moments. Immediately, Thomas Kelly caught my attention by describing perfectly my condition and the condition of so many I knew. Here's the quote from the essay. We feel honestly the pull of many obligations and try to fulfill them all. And we are unhappy, uneasy, strained, oppressed, and fearful we shall be shallow. Yes, I had to confess I saw myself in those words. To all who knew me, I was confident and in command, but inwardly I was tired and scattered. We have our outward persona, how we present ourselves to the world, and we have our inner reality. If you knew me, if you knew what was going on inside of me, and this we're not so ready to share with many people. But I tell you, you gotta share it in your two-way prayer journal, or you ain't gonna go nowhere. You've got to take your 10th step inventory. That's what that first question thing is about. This is how I feel. You may not see it, but this is what's going on inside of me. He said, "Then my eyes came upon words of hope and promise." And here's the quote that arrested him. Kelly wrote, "We have hints that there is a way of life vastly richer and deeper than all this hurried existence, a life of unhurried serenity and peace and power. If only we could slip over into that center with a capital C. I think this is the center that Jung is talking about. He's just coming at it from a different perspective. Instinctively, I knew that he was speaking of a reality beyond my experience. Please understand me. I was not ungodly or irreverent, just the opposite. My problem was that I was so serious, so concerned to do what was right, that I felt compelled to respond to every call to service. After all, they were wonderful opportunities to minister in Christ's name. The end result, however, was what Kelly describes as, quote, an intolerable scramble of panting feverishness. Outer, inner. Are you getting it? All right. And Kelly's writings are striking a chord. Then came the sentence that was to prompt an inner revolution. Here's the sentence. We have seen and known some people who seem to have found this deep center of living, where the fretful calls of life are integrated, where no as well as yes can be said with confidence. I knew I had been found out, he says. This ability to say yes and no out of the divine center, as Kelly calls it, was foreign to me. Oh, I could say yes easily enough because opportunities to serve carried an aura of spirituality and sacrifice. But to say no was another matter altogether. What would people think of me if I refused? What would people think of me? So there's the persona, the image, the who I want you to think I am, but I'm not. You see? I mean, we've all got that. And that's the thing that separates us. And if we're going to find wholeness, not holiness, wholeness, which I think is really what full recovery is all about. It's integrating these separated, fractured, disconnected parts of self. That's what the spiritual journey is about. And it's not so much a climbing up to heaven on some divine ladder. It's going inside and going down deep in a good step 10, which is going to take me to some uncomfortable areas that are keeping me from wholeness. But if I can break through those, then I'm going to arrive at a new center, and it's not going to feel restless, irritable, and discontent. It's going to feel rested and contented because I've become more whole. Okay, you with me? All right. Even in that congested airport terminal, I was utterly alone with the alone, capital A. Just like his center is a capital C. To be alone with the alone is to be small a alone with the capital A alone. That's rightly related to the voice, to the divine. God, he is the Father, we are his children. We are his agents, I think it is. Hey. I was utterly alone with the alone. The cold rain splattering on the window was matched by the hot tears splattering on my jacket. The chair where I sat was a holy place, an altar. I was never to be the same. Quietly, I asked God to give me the ability to say no, when it was right and good. So this guy was killing himself, doing too much, and that's why he speaks to me. I think well, I don't think, I know I'm failing at retirement, you know, and that's why this book speaks to me. I have a difficult time saying no, which is the codependency. I think that underlies many people with alcoholism and addictions. We're codependents underneath it. We want you to like us, and so we're going to perform. But if we're performing, we ain't being real. Okay, you following? I hope you are. It's not light stuff, I know that, but we're going to go slow. Back home, I was once again caught up in a flurry of activity. We stay busy. But I had made one decision. Friday nights were to be reserved for the family. It was a small decision at the time. Nobody but I knew about it. I shared it with my wife, Carolyn, and the boys in a casual, offhand fashion. They did not know that it was a covenant commitment, a crossroads decision. It was a big deal to his inner self, to his inner truth. I'm going to be true to this. Nor did I, really. It just seemed like the right thing to do, hardly what you would call a God given directive. But then the phone call came. It was a denominational executive. Would I be willing to speak to such and such a group next Friday night? There it was, another wonderful opportunity. Almost without thinking, I blurted out, "Oh, no, I can't." The response was measured. "Oh, do you have another commitment?" I felt trapped. Parentheses. In those days, I did not know that I could quite legitimately say that I did indeed have a very important commitment. Close parentheses. Cautiously but purposefully, I answered simply, "No," with no attempt to justify or explain my decision. There followed what seemed like an eternity of silence. I could almost feel the condemnation traveling through the telephone wires. If I take care of myself, I'm going to be shamed. I should be able to do this. We put on our Superman cape. I'll do it, but I'm going to pay a price. I'm going to pay a price of integrity, of authenticity. I'm not going to be true to my deepest self. I knew I had made a decision that made me seem less dedicated to someone for whom I genuinely cared. After a moment, we shared a few pleasantries and then hung up. But as the phone hit the receiver, I jumped out of my chair shouting, "Hallelujah!" I had yielded to the center, and the result was electrifying. Savor that line. I had yielded to the center. I had yielded to the voice. I had aligned my life with the voice, with the commitment, with the decision. Think of that third step decision. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God. That's going to be lived out. I'm going 52 years of living it out. And sometimes I'm connected with it and aligned with it, and sometimes I am not. And when I am not, it is non electrifying. The electricity is not flowing, the juice is not coming into my life. And I get bored, and I get restless, and I get irritable. Why? Because I am not connected to my source, to my center. Capital S, capital C. Call it what you will. Call it the great reality within. Call it God. Call it whatever. It doesn't matter. What matters is, Am I aligned with it? Is it able to flow through me? Well, it flowed through Foster in that airport. Words had reached him. He had made a decision after that to his family. And then that gave him the power to say no, to say no and not feel guilt, shame, remorse under that. I said no. Some of us have a hard time accessing that level of freedom. That's some of the underlying stuff that I think this short introduction is bringing us to. That simple no coming out of divine promptings set me free from the tyranny of others. Divine promptings. What is this voice? What is this inner voice, this great reality? How does it communicate with us? Well, sometimes in two-way prayer, in the writings, but there's a feeling inside. I've used this word. I don't know if I took it from here. I don't think so. Maybe I did. I don't know. Divine promptings, pushing, pulling. This center is pulling us towards it and pushing us towards it. Sometimes it's the one, sometimes it's the other, but it's a definite draw, you know? And I have a choice. I always have a choice. Do I follow the promptings? Or do I say, the hell with that, I'm doing what I want to do? You don't stand still, I don't believe, in our spiritual growth, development, evolution. We're either moving forward or we're sliding back. I don't believe there is a plateau. Every day, every hour, every moment, I am aligned with or I am separated from. Now I'm pretty aligned with in the morning when I'm doing my two-way prayer. But that tends to leak out during the day. Ego tends to slip back in, take over. My center shifts. It shifts away from the God center to the self centered. And that's how you begin to sense that Jung is right and Kelly is right, that there are two different centers operating within me. One is the ego center, the other is the God center, the great reality within. And I got to be sensitive to these two places, positions, stances, call them what you will. It gets a little vague when we get in there, but that's why I love somebody who is able to describe it better than I am. Because, that's what they're talking about. That's what the big book is talking about. The big book invites us to an encounter with the divine, that we have to find something that feels better than alcohol or drugs if we're going to go back to them. And I can't tell you how many emails I get from people 15 years sober, 20 years sober. I'm bored. I'm bored with the meetings. I'm bored with the steps. Well, I'll tell you what, you plug into this puppy, you ain't going to be bored. You will not be bored because the juice that's going to start flowing through you is going to be exciting. Life becomes an adventure, and each day brings new opportunities for its expression if you're sensitive to them, if you're alive to them. Most people are asleep and content to stay there. So anyway, let's keep going. That simple no out of divine promptings set me free from the tyranny of others. The tyranny of others. I don't answer to my sponsor, at 20, 30, 40 years sober. I hope you've grown beyond that. We answer to God. We answer to the divine promptings that are within. We answer to that within us, which is pushing us, pulling us towards what? Towards wholeness. That's the journey. And you got to take your measurement of, am I on the journey or am I off the journey today? That writing from my prayer journal from 10, 15 years ago, I was off the journey. I was not surrendered. I was not aligned. And I was starting to feel it. Restless, irritable, discontent. See, that's what that thing's about. Don't say, oh, isn't that awful? I'm that way. It's a helpful prompting that you're that way, if you will realize it and get back on course. Okay, enough from me. Even more, it set me free from my own inner clamoring for attention and recognition and applause. Don't we love to be the star? Doesn't the ego love to be the center? Even if it's a center of calamity, the heavy drama. Oh, look what happened to me. Poor me. Why me? One guy was in therapy for 10 years and he finally got the answer. He went to his shrink and he said, I got the answer, doc. Why not me? He had shifted from his self-centeredness to being one of the group. And tough things happen to us from time to time. But if I'm at that center, I'm able to deal with them. I'm able to go through them. I'm sometimes able to come out the other side with enhanced meaning and purpose and dedication to the journey. It ain't going to all be smooth, we come apart and then we come back together. That's just the way it goes. This incident is so small and insignificant that it is almost embarrassing to relate it to you. I'm sure my denominational friend does not even recall the phone conversation. And yet, I had turned a corner inside. Even now, I sometimes wish that something terribly important precipitated such an inner transformation. But there it is, a trivial event, yet it changed everything for me. Perhaps it has been that way for you also. At least I know that often the genuinely significant issues are decided in the small corners of life. And one of the greatest gifts that Thomas Kelly brings to us is an ability to see the holy in the most common of places and the most unexpected of events. Since that first day in a Washington, D.C. airport, I have returned often to a testament of devotion. Each time I leaf through the pages of this book, I know I am in the presence of a giant soul. I am the better for the encounter. I'm sure you will be too. I don't know if saying no is a huge thing for you out there. Maybe for you, it's saying yes. In which case, it's the same difference, When I'm called, I say yes. Or if I'm leaning over in the other direction and I push myself too hard, I have to have the ability to say no. And whether it's yes or whether it's no, what is the divine promptings leading me to do? And what is the ego leading me to do? Learning to discern, learning to see where I'm coming from, learning to correct course is a huge, huge part of the journey. So I would encourage you to pick up a copy of A Testament of Devotion by Thomas R. Kelly. Again, the link is in the show notes. And we're going to go through 3 or 4 of his chapters. I know we're going to do the first one, and I know we're going to do Holy Obedience. Those were 2. First one is The Light Within, where I think he really describes what this center is in beautiful language and mystical language that we can wrap our hands and our heads around. And understand, I think, at a deeper level what the program is prompting us towards. Okay? That 12th step, having had a spiritual, originally, Wilson said, experience, not just awakening, but an experience. You can't deny an experience. And my hope is that Thomas R. Kelly will help you have one. So, anyway, that's a wrap. Hope this thing turned out okay. That was my guidance. Go ahead and do it. And now I can get back to some of that other work. So, thank you for listening, guys. I hope it was helpful. More to come. God bless and keep coming back.